Elizabeth Mahusai here, host of the podcast Thinking That Matters, and I'm here with my special guest and friend, Rich Cavaness, and I am so excited for you to get to learn more about him and his focus on working with insurance agency owners.
Yes, that is correct.
So, Rich, give us a brief overview. You know, the 60-second commercial,
Perfect.
Your background, who you are, what you do, all the things.
I can do it quickly. So, I've been in the insurance space arena for about 15 years. I've started an agency from scratch, and I've bought an agency or I acquired an agency. So I've done it both ways, and I'm in the process again of starting from scratch. And so that's been that's a very interesting concept again at my age. Yeah, I mean, I love business. I love running businesses, but I really have a passion for helping other people to be able to kind of experience more about what I've experienced with my agency, because there's a lot of insurance agency owners out there that are not doing very well. They're just kind of surviving, and my goal is to help them thrive.
Before I dive in on part of what sets you apart and how you've cultivated success in the insurance space, I would love for you to speak to what you just said, though, that there are a lot of insurance agency owners out there that are really struggling. What is your assessment on the state of insurance agency owners and their businesses?
You know, I think not too long ago, I actually was at a conference where I heard a very high-level leader of a very large, well-known insurance company, and they kind of mentioned that, you know, like 75% of the agency force doesn't even have 1,000 policies in their agency. So the question you have to ask then is, how are you making a living? Because I mean, that's not enough business to even really do very well. Obviously you're not having staff. You're probably the one running your office, one and only, which is a big part of the problem right there. But yeah, I mean, the insurance industry as a whole is going through a very disruptive stage right now, very disruptive, to the point of a lot of claims. We've had more catastrophic. I mean, just look at. We just recently had Hurricane Beryl, and I mean, the devastation is just unbelievable. And who is the one that ends up paying for this? Is the insurance companies. And so they can't keep doing what they're doing. And so they're making a lot of changes with coverages, with, rates, how they're doing their agency forces. I mean, everything's being disrupted right now.
So something that whole idea of trying to be the one and only to build an agency, which sounds like a misnomer based on your experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So lay out for us, because you said it's not just been one, you've had two different agencies. And I so appreciate the fact that you not only have built one from scratch, which of course you're doing again, but you also purchased one and doubled it over time.
In 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, truly, to think about that. So when you think about the mindset that is needed, right? The powerful mindset needed as an agency owner, lay out your thought process there on, obviously you're exuding it your own self because you've lived it, but that you also coach agency owners to have.
Well, it really comes down to, I mean, you have a new international best-selling book, Pick Your Path. So you obviously know how important mindset is. And what I have realized in all my coaching of all business owners, but specifically with insurance agency owners, Elizabeth, is that they have to make a choice of whether they're going to be a self-employed person, which is basically owning a job, or they're going to be a business owner where they basically have other people that are working with them. They have a team, and that team is working to build what they want, build their vision of what they want. And what I find is that, a large percentage of the agency force out there, they're fine with being an S. They're fine with being self-employed because a lot of them, I was just having lunch with one the other day. They right in front of me as we're having lunch. Oh, just a second, I need to answer the phone. And it was a client. And I'm like, when they hung up the phone, I said, "Why are you answering that phone?" I said, that's odd to me. And they said, oh, yeah, so we'll talk more about this here in just a minute. But the key is that you want to be focusing as an agency owner on what's the key activities, your critical success factors that are making you the money that you want to make and helping you to run your agency, and then everything else needs to be delegated to your team members. And that's something that is kind of a foreign concept to a lot of agency owners.
So true. I think that people see it as, in their mind, they believe they're seeing it as a business. Let me say it that way.
Yeah.
But they're treating it as a self-employed opportunity.
When I purchased this agency 4 years ago, I went into it 100% from the beginning, from day one, as a business owner. My goal was to hire as many people as I could, as fast as I could, because I knew where I wanted to go. And you know what? It worked. And the truth of the matter is, and I know that, like in your book, you have a whole chapter on fear. I think fear is a big reason why a lot of agency owners struggle, is that they're afraid that, well, if I hire someone, I won't be able to pay them. It's going to take money out of my pocket. How am I going to have to, change my lifestyle and all of that? And so it's very scarcity mind. It's a scarcity mindset, Elizabeth, is really what it is. You have to think abundantly when you're an agency owner. You have to think that the more people I hire, the more money I'm going to make, the more volume that's coming into my agency. And it really is true. I know that for a lot of people, when they hear this, they're like, how can that be? Your expenses are going up and all that. Yeah, I don't look at it as an expense. I look at it as I'm investing in my business so that I can really reach the goals and the vision. And in many ways, just in 4 years, I exceeded what I originally had kind of hoped for.
So I think that's a great segue. You said it's the difference between thinking of it as an expense and thinking of it as an investment.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I want you to address, for those listening, the value of treating your agency as an asset.
So the value in that is that it changes your thinking. When you see your agency as an actual asset, then you start thinking about how you spend your money. You start thinking about, am I going to, how am I going to scale this? How am I going to, what kind of team players am I going to bring aboard? Where am I going to be located at? What kind of branding am I going to do? You start thinking differently than if you're just, if you're going to run something yourself, you don't even need to leave your home. You can just stay in your pajamas and
why have a brick and mortar?
Yeah, just go into your office at your designated office at your house, and then you can just run it from there like that. But you start to, when you really value it as an asset, you dress differently, you think differently, you speak differently, you plan differently. Everything about what you're doing, the vision that you have for it, everything changes. And so that's the one thing that I believe, and that's why I'm committed to coaching insurance agency owners, is because I believe that I can help them a lot. And I have helped a lot of insurance agency owners to be able to kind of see exactly what I'm explaining to you, that your mindset is the single most important thing. Because once you've got that right, then everything else will start to you'll start to see the path. Pick the path, right? Pick the path, Elizabeth.
I know we are on the same wavelength about just the value of mindset, and that it really is about choosing your thinking wisely. It's one of the reasons why I have that whole process of thinking that matters, because how an agency owner thinks truly does matter. Now, let's go back to the treating your agency as an asset. Mm-hmm. I had a note here about invest in it or take from it.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the notes that I had was having your agency as a growing entity versus a lifestyle enterprise.
Oh, okay. Wait, you say that one more time, slower, and then I want you to expound on that.
So having your agency as a growing entity versus a lifestyle enterprise. So what I see a lot of agency owners doing is that, they basically are, I call them takers. They don't invest in themselves. They're constantly just taking. So they're just trying to do, sell policies so that they can just take from the agency. What you have to understand is that every dollar that you make, you have to decide, am I going to spend it, or am I going to invest it, or am I going to take from it? And so what I chose was that I'm going to invest it. And it was interesting because when I started, just before I sold the agency here just a few months ago, it was really interesting. I didn't realize until I started to had a couple months where I was taking more out of it than I normally did. But I actually spent I really invested a lot of money into my agency, and I sacrificed a lot of my own, you know, income so that I could really grow it. But here's the thing: if anybody could hear this and really put this to practice, if you can put your head down for 4 years, I mean, literally, put your head down and just make a decision and say, I'm going to invest in my agency, and just don't look up for 4 years. Just go, go, go. I promise you, when you look up after 4 years, this is what happened to me in January of this year. After my 4th year, when I saw what the renewals were, I was like really,
Wow.
I was really blown away. It was mind-boggling. And so, because in the insurance industry, it's not just that you multiply or that you double. I mean, you can literally like 10x. I mean, it happens quickly when you add in rate increases, then you add in new business, you add in renewals, you add in all of this. It's a tremendous asset. It really is. If you don't feed it, then it never grows. It's like having a investment portfolio, and if you're not putting money into it and you just let it sit there, I mean, yeah, it might grow a little bit, but it's never going to be
It's minuscule.
It's minuscule.
Yeah.
You have to feed it. You have to feed it, and that's I guess for me, I mean, I started the agency, or I bought the agency in the middle of COVID. I mean, people thought I was nuts, but I knew exactly what I wanted. I looked at it as an opportunity, and I still even today look at it as an opportunity. And that's another probably big thing too, Elizabeth, is that a lot of insurance agents, they're afraid. So when they start hearing things like, "Wow, it's a very disruptive, market," "Wow, my insurance carrier's canceling homes," and all that, they start to get the meltdown and the freak out going. And so what you have to understand is that a real entrepreneur, a real business owner, starts to get their mind strategically thinking, how can I take advantage of this? What's the opportunity in this for me? And that's why you see literally, the rich get richer, the poor get poor, is because in the insurance industry, if you don't maximize the opportunities, then you're going to get passed by.
So you said something that caught my attention, because I know that part of your makeup, like how you approach life and business growth, is you have a short run focus, right? You're very focused in the short run of time. You're also equally as focused in the longer growth period. So, for example, I know that you think in 5-year increments, and I want you to speak to that. But something that you said that caught my attention is that in the middle of COVID, yes, things were bad, but you weren't thinking this is the way it's going to always stay.
No.
You were thinking, how can I leverage where we are right now that I can grow something to, obviously 4 years later, you sold it 4 times for 4 times as much. So speak to this mindset that you have of, head down focused in the short term, but you're operating on a longer range time frame.
You got to have a long-term vision. You got to be thinking down the road. Where do I want to go with this? Because from that vision and kind of where you want to go, you can start to, setting some goals and some
milestones right?
to kind of help you along the way. But like during COVID, so what the first thing I thought was, hey, this is a tremendous opportunity. Everybody's at home. Most of the time, you can't even reach people during the day, right? So I started doing a lot of internet leads. And lo and behold, guess what? People were doing that. They were shopping stuff around. They were buying stuff on TV. People
they were buying from online boutiques.
They were buying everything, right? So people were shopping like crazy. And I was like, man, this is great. This is way better than I could have imagined. So I just got into buying internet leads. I started hiring salespeople and producers, and it just really started to multiply. And but I didn't think, oh man, COVID, what's going to happen here? So the whole idea is that and I want to make sure I answer the question that you asked. So the whole idea is that you want to make sure that as you have your vision, that you break it down into chunks. So I have a year, a 12-month plan. I have a 5-year vision, business a marketing plan that I have put together. Then I break it down into every year, and then I break it down that year into 90-day chunks. And so I'm really focus. I focus quarterly. I really, because I feel like you can, and tell me what you're thinking, since you're a business coach too. But I believe that people can work really efficiently in 90-day increments, and it helps you to stay focused on your goal. If you keep thinking too long term, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, whatever, sometimes that can be a little too far out. Whereas if you're focusing on 90 days, I can do anything for 90 days. I can. And so that's why I do that, and I have found it to be incredibly effective.
Well, when you think about the success of books like the 12-week year, I mean, that I think that 21 days, putting it into smaller increments makes it feel more achievable for an individual. And so I agree with you. You do need the long range view. You do want to back that up into short run spurts, because it's the difference in running a sprint or running a marathon.
Yes.
Right. And building a business overall is a marathon. To get to the finish line, in this case, you sold the agency, you had to run a lot of sprints along the way.
Yep.
And you needed clarity to be able to do that. So I think that's a good segue for me to ask you, because part of your focus and your passion is to coach other agency owners to success.
Yeah.
So speak to your coaching, and why would an agency owner or someone who knows an agency owner listening and or watching this, why would they go, hey, you need to have a conversation with Rich Cavaness?
Well, I think the biggest reason why they need to listen to what I have to say is because I've got the experience. I've had 2 agencies, not one, but 2. Each one was different. One was a startup, one was an acquisition. And so I know both ends of the spectrum from that perspective. But I think the biggest thing is that I actually know how to build something and to sell it. And if you think about it, I know a lot of people that are watching this, agency owners, are probably thinking, well, I'm just going to be here forever. No, you're not. Trust me, you're not going to be here forever. People think that, but that life happens and things change. You want to put your agency in. From the moment I bought the agency back in 2020, I started it with the thinking that I'm going to run this like I'm going to sell it tomorrow. And because you need to have it as a strong asset. The truth is that you can emotionally think that your agency's worth X amount of dollars. It's worth this. It's worth that. I've put my blood, sweat, and tears into it. Nobody cares about that. What they care about is, what do the numbers say? Because it's a business. And when you sell a business, people are buying that business. They're wanting to know specific things like, what's your PIF gain? How much new business are you bringing in? What's your retention rate? What's your revenue, or your annual revenue? How are your renewals? All of these things. What's your staff like? Everything kind of contributes to the value of the asset. So I feel like I'm very, very astute and can help people a lot, especially insurance agency owners, on how to really look at their agency as an asset, and then help them along the path of, because it took 4 years to get where I'm at. So you got to plan ahead for it. You can't just wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to sell my agency, and you haven't put any thought to it, because I can promise you there will be some things that I could look at your agency and I could tell you, if you don't improve this, the value is lower. That's just the way it is. People aren't going to pay what you want to pay for it. So you have to really think through, when I'm going to do this, and start putting an exit strategy together and things like that. So I believe that that's an area where I can really, really help people with, their agencies.
So, well, there were so many things that you included in that, so many good nuggets. One thing that I just want to highlight is there's a difference between the emotion that we have around what we feel it is worth versus what the actual business numbers communicate.
That's correct.
And I believe, and I see it, it's not just in the insurance industry. There are other industries as well, but I think it's very prevalent in the insurance industry.
It is.
Because there are so many individuals who are all things within the agency. And so they're emotionally attached to it. Whereas with your thought process of you invest in it, it's an asset. There's a certain amount of emotional detachment when we think of something as an asset, right?
Yeah.
And when you're building people and teams and all of these other aspects, it allows there to be a certain amount of emotional boundary, which I think helps people to think about it in a more healthy way.
Yes. Well, when you build your insurance agency around you and your branding is around your name and you and everything, the challenge with that is, okay, now you're going to go sell it. What are you selling? You're selling your name. So
Does someone else use your name?
Yep, somebody else isn't going to want to use your name. So when I bought this agency, my whole focus was I'm going to run it from day one as if I'm not even here. I'm not even part of this. And I just totally put all my focus on my team. I would tell people, hey, let me, when people would give me a referral, I always gave it to my producer team. I never, ever did quotes. I never, ever did any of the sales because I wanted my team to do it, because that's where you develop.
That's how you build a team.
That's how you build a team, and that's how you build value in your agency.
So something that I have, I hear quite often, because we are business coaches, that an individual will go, I don't have the money to invest in coaching. Mm-hmm. What would you say to the person listening that is thinking that, or they've verbally said it in their mind, they're going, I totally need coaching, but I can't afford it?
Yeah. Well, they're spending money on a lot of different things, right? You and I know that. So if I was to really look at somebody's budget and what they're spending every month, I can promise you they're spending money on stuff. They're spending money on things. They're just not seeing the value in the coaching because they've never done it before. But I would tell people, look at every sport, look at every business, look at anyone and everyone that's really achieved greatness. They all have something in common, and that is they all have coaches. Everyone. It's literally impossible to reach high levels of success by yourself. You need someone to come by your side, and that's what a coach is. They come alongside, they guide you, they help you. They don't necessarily give you the answers, but they're there to help you and guide you along that path. It makes such a difference. I mean, again, watching the Wimbledon tennis match, I mean, these players, they rely on their coaches a lot. They're looking up at the box. One of the coaches was doing this to the player, which means step forward. Instead of being so far back on the serve, come forward more. Come forward. It made all the difference. It changed the whole game.
Wow.
So a coach is somebody who can really radically change your perception. And, when you're in the frame, it's really hard sometimes to see outside of that, whereas a coach can come in and give you an outside perspective. And I think that's literally where I feel like the blessing of coaching is. It's the outside perspective of someone coming in and being able to say, hey, what are we doing this for? Or what's your thinking on this and that type of thing. And especially, insurance agency owners, I think sometimes they think they got it all figured out. And it's really important for you to kind of set aside your ego and make that part of your investment. If you're going to spend $10,000 a month in leads, you can definitely afford coaching. If you think that you can't afford it, that's actually probably the self-talk. If you keep saying I can't afford it, the self-talk is really I need to afford it, right? And
I can't afford not.
I can't
to
afford
have it.
not. To do
something
it.
that you said just really struck a chord in me about, when you're inside the frame, right, and you need the coach. In effect, the coach in an agency owner's life or business is a strong pattern disruptor
Yes.
to the autopilot that they've allowed themselves to engage within the agency. And oftentimes people feel stuck, and they truly do not understand how to get unstuck.
Yes.
And so a coach can really come in, and for those who are listening going, well, what do you mean by pattern disruptor? It's a way to disrupt the way the brain is thinking, especially because you just keep doing the same thing. But then we get into these bad habits of thinking we'll get different results. So a coach can come in and really disrupt the pattern by asking a question like, tell me about your investment here. What's the purpose of that? What's the return on that? How is that working out for you? Like, these questions that a coach asks really helps to disrupt the thinking pattern of, in this case, an agency owner. I'm curious.
I was just going to mention. So you and I did a joint training for an insurance group. I'm not going to get too specific, and a great example of this is that the ones in that particular region or group, the agencies that were really thriving were the ones that were doing the coaching. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
I just find it so interesting that when you look at really thriving insurance agencies, 9 times out of 10, they do have some form of coaching that's going on.
That's helping them. So for people who watch this and they're in this place where they really want to think about, how could I get a higher valuation, right? They are thinking exit strategy. They are thinking, what if I wanted to sell my agency? While this isn't a coaching session, but I do believe you could give some key things for them to consider for helping that valuation.
I thought you were going to ask me this, so I came prepared. For this. So what time? We got 5 minutes. All right, so I'm going to have to go through this very quickly, Elizabeth. So let me just run down it. Okay. So here's some key factors that I have come to realize are important for your agency valuation. If you want the highest evaluation of your agency, you need to have staffing and you need to have a team in place, because when that happens, that means the person who's buying it is going to keep going, right? So that's very important. You need to have your retention rates at 80% or better. You need to make sure you measure everything. Your return on investment on everything that you do needs to be measured. You need to make sure that every dollar you're spending is bringing something back to you. It has to, okay? And that includes, especially with staffing, if you are hiring people that are not actually making you money, you need to really reevaluate that situation, because that's very
Makes
important.
Sense.
Yep. We already talked about growing entity versus the lifestyle enterprise, payroll, bonuses, benefits. All of that is going to be figured into the valuation. And then here's a big one. If you are too off balanced, if you're off kilter a little bit with like a lot of commercial and not enough personal lines or life insurance or whatever, that can actually throw your valuation down, because when you have a lot of commercial, you tend to have a lot of bigger policies, and those can be risky. You lose one, and it could be a big
massive impact.
So you have to consider, you want to have a balanced book. That's very important. Another thing is, you need to minimize your discretionary income for the 2 years previous to selling your agency, right? And what I mean by that is you need to be as lean and mean as you can with your income, your compensation, your cars, your trips, all of the stuff that maybe you typically have done. You got to rethink that too, because again, that's all figured into the valuation. Here's a really big one. I have found a lot of agencies that are what I call them monoline agencies, and what I mean by that is that they're happy with writing just a car, or just a life policy, whatever. The agencies that are really profitable, Elizabeth, are the ones that have 2 to 3 policies per household. Multi-line, because, and that's you've heard the word bundle. That is the key. That is the word that I used a lot in my agency, was you got to have
the bundle.
You got to have the bundle. That's the way that you become very profitable. You got to operate on a budget. All right, you got to think strategically. So make sure you have a bookkeeper and an accountant. You got to make sure you've got your numbers, and you got to make sure you're looking at your numbers all the time. Have your systems and processes in place so that you have your key performance indicators, your servicing, onboarding, all of those. That the more systems and the more processes that you have that are working well, that's going to be very enticing to someone because they know they can come in and it can run. And then I highly recommend people, this is my last one here before we wrap up, use a outside broker to help you sell your business. I've done it two different ways where I had inside people buy it, which when I say inside would be like, say like you work for, Liberty Mutual, Allstate, State Farm, Farmers, any of those big carriers or whatever, somebody that might be in those agents, with those carriers that wants to buy your agency, they're going to offer you a lot less money. And so one of the things I encourage agency owners to do is hire a business broker because they're going to give you a better valuation, and it's kind of like buying a house. I mean, I would never buy a house without a real estate agent.
You want representation.
I want representation. I want somebody who knows what they're doing. I want somebody who's going to really be a bulldog for me. And that's what a broker will do for you in selling your business. So that worked out tremendously for me.
I love it. So all in all, just thinking about the whole of our conversation, that your focus is really bringing the experience that you have, not only in buying a scratch agency, but then also the acquisition of an agency that you were able to double the value of in a 4-year period. So not only do you understand the startup challenges, the building components, you also have great experience in the selling of for profit, that asset that you have spent, you spent time building. So I want to encourage you as the listener that who do you know that is an insurance agency owner? Maybe that's you, or maybe it's someone that you know. I highly, highly encourage you to connect with Rich. Rich, what is the best way for them to be able to contact you?
Well, they can go to let's see here. Probably the best way to do it would be to either give me a phone call. I mean, I actually prefer texting and a phone call, 214-924-5693. They can reach me on my email at rcavaness@southwesternconsulting.com. And that would probably be the two best ways to reach out.
Well, we appreciate you tuning in, and I want to encourage you and challenge you that from our conversation with Rich today to really cultivate a mindset of a business owner, an asset holder, so that you can have a difference, that to be a difference maker for you in the overall building of your wealth.